Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode. And I've got Peggy and coming out of Canada, and she is of particular interest for the female audience. She is a coach and she teaches clients how to rewire their brain, calm their body, master emotions, raise energy. I think it's very timely in this day and age, and I'm really happy to have her on the show. So, Peggy, welcome.
Thank you so much, Chris, for having me. I'm super excited and really looking forward to answer any questions you might have.
Yeah, start off, I always have people introduce themselves briefly to set the stage,
Yeah.
and I'm really excited to dive into the meat of the conversation.
Thank you so much. So I'm sure you can hear to my accent. I'm from France originally. So I immigrated to Canada 20 years ago. So I know all about the immigrant experience. And I used to work in finance. I spent 20 years in finance and I had my own business, like most of your audience. I was advising actually investors on how to allocate capital to technology firms, especially startups in the fintech space. And a few years ago, like many people in the psychedelic space, I started using psychedelics for my own mental health and performance. And we were talking about rewiring the brain and calming the body. And I needed that a lot, as I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs can relate to, female or not, by the way. And I was so blown away by the results that I decided to actually change career. So I closed my business in finance and I started writing a book on microdosing, like the protocol that I use, the 90-day protocol. I wrote a book. I developed a microdosing product with a clinic, launched online coaching service, do it yourself. And I started coaching myself. I do public speaking. So totally changed my life in the last 2 years. Doesn't mean that you will change your life if you start microdosing, but I think it was time for me for a change. So it was the good conjunction of events.
Yeah, really fascinating intro. And while you were talking, I had a couple questions. When I hear guests talk about life changing experiences, what sort of life changing things did you see? Was it
Yeah.
in your results or your approach?
Yeah. I would say almost all of the above because I was never someone who used any type of recreational drugs. So I was like most people my generation. I'm 47 years old thinking, oh my God, psychedelics, you're going to go blind, you're going to go deaf, and you're going to see pink elephants. And when I started looking into microdosing, so that means taking a very small dose of psilocybin, magic mushroom, I realized that actually you have no eye, you have absolutely no hallucination. But what you have is the ability to rewire your brain, so neuroplasticity. And I had been on the personal and professional development path for, I don't know, 15 years at least. And I had seen results, but I thought the result was still extremely small based on the amount of efforts and resources I was putting into. So I would say it was extraordinary for me to start microdosing psychedelics because it was very different from what I have done. And for someone like me, it is extraordinary. But the results were extraordinary in the sense that I have suffered for anxiety for all my life since I was a young kid, actually. It has been amplified, as you can imagine, being an entrepreneur, being in finance and all that great stuff. But also I had depression, and I would say my anxiety has been reduced by 90%, which for someone like me, it's a massive impact because it was very debilitating. And my depression is a story of the past. So that's what I mean by extraordinary action and extraordinary results, because I've seen both.
Yeah, really interesting. The first time I heard about this was from Tim Ferriss. He was talking about, and I know a lot of entrepreneurs, and they describe this experience. So, when you're microdosing, what should clients be aware of? What's the experience like? Does the visual or auditory or like your feeling? Just what should we be expecting?
Yeah, actually, microdosing is very different than the type of journey you and the audience probably has heard about, which is You're going to take 3 or 5 grams of mushrooms, and I've done journey like that. But then, yes, you have like total hallucination and you have a lot of out of this world type of experience. Nothing to do with microdosing. It's the only thing that is in common is the fact that they're both using magic mushroom. But otherwise, think about microdosing psilocybin the same as you're taking your omega-3 every day or your vitamin C, because you don't feel anything. Yes, after a week, and usually you don't microdose every day. You microdose every 2 or 3 days. So after a week, you would have only taken 2 or 3 doses of 100 milligrams, so very small compared to 3, 5 grams. So you will not feel anything when you take the cap. You don't feel anything. It's just that after a week, you're going to start feeling more relaxed. After 2 weeks, you're going to start seeing more opportunities, but it's also your performance. For me, the performance is not the reason I started microdosing, but it was the most noticeable effect. I actually wrote another book and I wrote the draft in 10 days. So it was just an ability to focus. That was something I've never experienced. And I don't have any challenge with focusing. I don't have ADHD, whatever. So it was really like, boom, a massive increase, but also my creativity got extremely high. So you're going to see the results, but you're not going to feel anything really, if I make sense.
Yeah. I think the media sensationalizes it because I watched this popular show about it's called Billionaires, but they talk about doing this and then they have this out of body experience and they're vomiting violently and just so I just really it's interesting to hear, how I know the other thing is how, comparison with hypnotherapy because I think I've heard people using hypnotherapy to improve their performance, a lot of
Yeah.
entrepreneurs. So
I
would
love hypnotherapy. Actually, I've done hypnotherapy for all my life. I used to blush a lot, but it was really debilitating. And hypnotherapy really helped me with that. And the thing you need to keep in mind when you're assessing microdosing, if it's good or not for you, microdosing is going to augment what you're doing already. It's really going to tie it all together. And that's what I really explain in my book that's called the microdose diet. And we combine multiple actually practices such as visualization, guided meditation. So not very far from hypnosis, tapping, if you're familiar with tapping. So the goal is to leverage the ability to rewire your brain easier with microdosing, but you want to rewire your brain with something you decided. That's why combining it with coaching, hypnotherapy, tapping is so important because I personally wouldn't like to just microdose and let it to whatever to rewire my brain with. So
yeah,
that's a very good question. Thank you, Chris. Actually, it's not either or. You
yeah,
want to do it in combination. Yeah.
interesting. The adjacent question is because a lot of the audience, they're doctors or they don't drink, they don't smoke, they don't do drugs. And I know, for example, cannabis, if you test positive for you're a medical professional and you have cannabis, you can have consequences. So how does microdosing, what should people be aware of in terms of like rules,
Yeah.
regulations, all of that?
That that is a very good question, Chris. Thank you. So the legislation is moving extremely fast. So and that's the challenge, that depending on where you are, the legislation is not the same. So if you are in Colorado, if you are in Oregon, this is legal. So there is no issue with that. But if you are maybe in New York, it is not legal. And you have a lot of clinical studies that are happening right now, especially for first responders and veterans.
Mm.
And because of positive results of these studies, there is a big push to change legislation. So I would say at every level, city level, county level, state level regulations that are being proposed, but they're all very different. So some they suggest a medical approach, some they suggest legalization and you do it yourself. So that is the thing that it's almost to each and any one of your audience who's listening to look at where they live, what is legal, what is not. And I'm going to push the envelope a little bit here, but also what they want to do. Because I am in Canada, it is not legal. And I use my civil disobedience mindset to say, you know what? I'm not going to wait another 20 years or 10 years. I don't know how long it's going to take for you to decide that, yes, I am allowed to do it. In order to do it, because we also want to take into consideration who benefit from not legalizing this type of medicine. And it is big pharma and billions are in play. So people are not fighting on the healthcare side to get this medicine legalized, actually. So you also need to use your own analytical skills. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, we all know how effective and efficient governments are. And of course, the existing medical industrial complex doesn't want to, because like you said, billions are in play, and they want to have an existing thing where they can profit off of existing, paradigm. What interesting thing is this. So how does, if somebody's interested, again, this is not, we're not advice, we're just safely talking about it. How do you, what's a safe way to do it? Self-guided?
Yeah.
Is somebody walking you through it? Where do you go? All of that.
So I would say the first thing is educate yourself. And thank you, Chris, for inviting me, because I would say podcasts like yours. Actually, my book was in Harvard Business Review in this fall edition. And every article, every podcast, every opportunity for people to educate themselves is great. So that's the first of anything. Educate yourself, because not all psychedelics are the same. It can be LSD, it can be MDMA, it can be mushrooms. Very different. And to your point, it can be microdosing, very small dose, or it can be 3 to 5 grams of magic mushroom. You're not going to take 3 or 5 grams of LSD, because otherwise that's not going to go well.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so important to educate yourself, because maybe for you, Christopher, what you would be interested is a MD experience in a medical environment. Maybe someone else going to be interested in doing, like I do, self-serve or working with a coach on microdosing magic mushroom. Then you have people who are taking the route of religious. They work with some congregation and they work. So it is why it is so important for you to get all the information and then decide for yourself what is good. So I picked magic mushroom when I looked into psychedelics because it is natural. It's a mushroom. So there is no MDMA or LSD that people touch and you don't really know what is in it. So I thought it was the safest, the most natural. That's why I took mushroom. I wanted to do microdosing because it felt very more manageable, small dosage. So that's how I decided to do it myself. I know many people who start by going in Costa Rica and Peru and doing the kind of experience you're referring to with ayahuasca, and they're violently sick in the jungle, whatever. And I'm like, that's not for me. You need to know who you are, but also what you're looking for.
Interesting. Yeah. So it sounds like be cautious and make sure where you're going is safe and
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. That is also why referrals are very important. Like having people, for example, use a product. I developed that protocol because I wanted people to be able to make the most of their microdosing experience, but also safely, mindfully, strategically. It's important, again, to do your homework, but also you need to be careful who is giving you reference. And you were talking about mediocilizing, the experience. And I was chatting actually with a psychotherapist who's doing this type of journey in a medical context. And she said the biggest problem she has now is that the expectations of the patients are totally out of range because they've been reading and hearing what you're talking about, experiences that are, oh my God, life-changing and da, da, da. So that's why they're expecting. So you also need to take the feedback with a grain of salt. Is it true? Is it real? Are people exaggerating? Is it that? transformative, keep your mind and analytics.
Interesting. The one I'm actually interested, just the science behind it and how does microdosing psilocybin work in the brain? I know it's interesting when I heard about cannabis and using it for like pain and all of
Yeah,
that. So how do you is it effective in enhancing focus, creativity,
yeah.
emotional regulation?
So the microdosing of magic mushrooms act on the serotonin receptor in your brain. So that's what helps actually rewire your brain and activate the neuroplasticity. Not all psychedelics work the same. And obviously, depending on the dosage and the frequency, you're going to have different results. One thing that's very interesting with psychedelics right now is that tons of studies are happening. So we had, just to give a bit a walk back memory lane, a lot of clinical studies happen in the 50s, 60s. And actually, psychedelics were even prescribed at the time to help veterans already with addiction to alcohol. And that's why in the last 15 years, you hear this psychedelic renaissance because we've seen, unfortunately, the limit of the treatments we have so far.
See.
And so I would say the old studies have been taken off the mothballs, but also tons of new studies are happening. So psychedelics are not just used in the context of focus and mental health, but now you see studies based on inflammation. So how can you use psychedelics to reduce arthrosis? You see obviously a lot of studies based on dementia and Alzheimer. So I would say now the door has been open and they are analyzed on wide range of elements because people are realizing that neuroplasticity of your brain can really help so many challenges we have. So this is how it works. It really works on your neocortex,
Uh-huh.
which is why it's fabulous when you combine it with technique like tapping meditation. And tapping, for people who don't know it, you use the tip of your fingers, you tap on some meridian points. Is leveraging a Chinese medicine in terms of the meridians map, and it allows to interrupt the signal between your brain and your body, telling you're anxious, telling you. And so the combination of both really help you rewire your brain, calming you. But I also use it to reprogram limiting belief, for example. So combination of tapping with microdosing, very helpful to change the belief you have about yourself and the world.
Fascinating. I know we have kind of 4 or 5 minutes to remaining. Talk about your book. How can people find it? How can people reach out to you, check out your work, learn more about it, inform themselves?
Yes. So the book is called More, the Microdose Diet, because the goal is to have more in your life. And the subtitle is The 90 Day for More Success, Passion, and Happiness, because at the end of the day, that's what we want. The challenge with anxiety is that it robs you of your sense of aliveness.
Mm.
And to really be able to not only be successful, but enjoy your success. A lot of us, like you, me, people on this podcast who are going to be listening, are very successful. But the challenge that they don't see themselves as successful, or they cannot even enjoy their success. And that is probably one of the big challenge we're facing. So the book, you can find it very easily. It's on Amazon, obviously, but also Barnes and Nobles, Indigo, all that great stuff. It's also on audiobook if you're more of a fan of audiobook, which is my case. And you can find me on my website, themicrodosediet.com. I do coaching. I sell microdosing product. You can work with me or work with a self-directed course. You can do everything related to that. Just check my website. You'll have more information.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that. And just always interesting to hear about cutting edge things and people enhancing their performance. And yeah, and for the audience, all of Peggy's resources, including the books, will be in the show notes. And check out her socials, give her a like and follow. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Chris. And if anyone has any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. I'll be happy to answer any questions or comments you might have. And thank you again, Chris, for giving me the platform. Really a pleasure to be able to share this new way of looking at life and making the most of your life.
Yeah.